please! Dan!
Hello and welcome to GCN's Tour de...
Dan! Oh, thank
Si.
God! Thank God!
Si, where have you been?
You left me on Outdo It!
So we were driving on Alberto this morning, thinking, I wonder where Dutch Corner is. And then, and then we got here, and I think we found it!
Hello everybody and welcome to GCN's preview show for the 2014 Tour de France. And where better to have it than at the Wrinkled Stocking Tea Room, which is on the course for Stage 2. Alongside me, Simon Richardson. Welcome back, Si.
Thank you very much. It's been a tough few months, but I've made it back, Dan.
And on my other side, Matt Stevens. Love your t-shirt.
Thanks very much indeed. Special.
Well, just a few weeks away from the Tour de France as we film this preview show. We've had a couple of warm-up races, Tour de Suisse only 2 stages in, but the Criterium de Dauphiné has finished and we've had some very, very interesting stuff going on in that race. And I think we'll start there, Matt. We've just had the Dauphiné Libre, or Criterium de Dauphiné as it is now. What can we take from that? Huge battle from Contador and Chris Froome, but in the end, neither of them winning it.
I think it's one of the best bike races I've seen in a long, long time. And I think that'll be echoed by the commentators and lots of fans out there on the internet. I mean, it was just wonderful racing. Andrew Talansky took the overall victory just by virtue of determination and doggedness, and also quite an inventive way of racing. And if we see more of the same in the Tour de France, then it's going to be wonderful stuff.
I think if we look back kind of to last November when the route was announced for this year's Tour de France, you would have had to said Chris Froome was out and out favourite by a long shot, I think you might say, from everybody else. But looking at the Dauphiné, maybe this season almost as a whole, you have to say Contador is almost on a par with him now.
I think you do. I mean, we know that Contador is, on paper, possibly the best stage race rider of his generation. Obviously, he's gone off the boil a little bit, and Chris Froome has filled his shoes. But I just think Contador's flying at the moment. Perhaps it's because he's changed his preparation slightly. We know that one of the Team Sky trainers has come over, Stephen de Jong, so he's back doing altitude training, things like that. And I think Contador's going to be giving him a real good run.
So Contador and Froome still very much the favourites for the overall of this year's race, but I think from an American's perspective, on the run into the Criterium de Dauphiné, we were looking at TJ Van Garderen to step up, maybe get onto the podium. He was looking great at the start of the year, but in the end, it's compatriot at Garmin Sharp, Andrew Talansky, who's won the Criterium de Dauphiné, his biggest win of his career, and he's a young rider as well. Could we see him on the podium this year, or is it too early?
I think, I'd like to see him on the podium. He's only 25 years of age. Already got a Tour de France under his belt last year, finishing the top 10. I think it was 10th place he came. Great potential for the future, but I think man on man, I don't think he has the kind of raw firepower of Contador or Froome or even Nibali, but I just like that determination that he has.
So what about BMC, Si? I mean, TJ Van Garderen, as we mentioned, hasn't had the best Criterium de Dauphiné, but we understand that he actually fractured his hip very slightly at the Tour de Romandie in May. So will that continue to affect him through July?
Well, I mean, poor chap, you fracture something like your hip and you lose 2 weeks off your bike. I mean, that's a major blow to your preparations. Even, from Romandie to the Tour de France, there's a good few months there. So yeah, I think absolutely it's gonna stunt his performance. The problem for BMC is if they've got anyone to fill his shoes. No one for GC, I don't think. And their stage winning capabilities are blunted because Gilbert's not there. He's going for the Worlds and the Vuelta. So yeah, it's a tough call for them.
Now, one rider that we haven't mentioned as yet is kind of third favourite when the route was announced last November, Vincenzo Nibali, winner of course previously of the Vuelta a España and the Giro d'Italia, third overall at the Tour de France when Bradley Wiggins won 2 years ago. People kind of criticising him a little bit for his performance so far this season, Matt, particularly in the Dauphiné where I think he was 7th overall. But if we look back 2 years ago, he was nowhere in the Criterium de Dauphiné before he went on to 3rd place in the final podium spot at the Tour. So is there anything for him and Team Astana to worry about?
Astana didn't have an awful Dauphiné. Obviously, Lou Vestro had a first and second, won an epic stage, the penultimate stage. So he's got good team riders. But Nibali did ride solidly. He's still a level, I think, below Froome and Contador, but he apparently is quite happy with his own performance. If I was a rider, I'd rather my form was on an upward trajectory rather than peaking, to be perfectly honest with you. And he doesn't look dangerous, but he looks solid, and I think he might ride himself well into the Tour.
My concern for Nibali is just that I just worry that perhaps he's not quite got the horsepower to win the Tour de France. Like, he's obviously won the Vuelta, as you said. He's won the Giro, but the Tour, for many people, is just another step up. And in the last 20 years at the Giro, only 2 guys have won the Giro and won the Tour as well. That's Marco Pantani and Alberto Contador. Now, that's not to say that he can't do it. I just think that having a proven track record in other Grand Tours doesn't necessarily qualify you to win the Tour de France. So I just have my concerns for him.
I think that he's going to be all right. That's my personal thought. Vincenzo Nibali, class act. I think he's going to be fine in July. Before we finish with the Dauphiné, of course, there's another warm-up race going on at the moment as well, which we'll get onto in just a few moments' time. But worth mentioning that Van den Broek of Lotto Belisol, somewhere back towards his best form. He's been 5th overall in the Tour de France twice before and may well make that same result again this year. But Matt, also Tour de Suisse going on at the moment. You have to say that the main favourites for the Tour de France are or were at the Criterium de Dauphiné, but we've only had one stage so far, or 2 stages as we film this so far. So what do you make of anyone in that race that could potentially come in the top 10 overall in the Tour de France in July?
We've got definitely some top 10 guys riding in Tour de Suisse. You've got Rui Costa, who's now the leader at Lamprey, moving across from Movistar, of course. Bolka Mollema, another top 10 rider. And obviously a big ally, lieutenant for Alberto Contador, is going to be at Roman Kreuziger as well. So it's early days yet in the Tour de Suisse, but another rider we haven't mentioned yet, Alejandro Valverde, where's he?
That's true actually, mate. Yeah, Valverde hasn't taken the traditional route to the Tour de France. Very successful early season, not seen much of him recently, and not at the Tour de Suisse or the Dauphiné. Is he doing another smaller stage race on the warm-up?
Yeah, so he's actually at the Route du Sud, isn't he? I think the thing about Valverde perhaps is that he obviously needed to change his preparation before the Tour to make the step up to contend with a podium. And we know that he's committed because he was at one of the Belgian semi-classics earlier in the year, you know, learning his trade on the cobbles. So I think he's a dark horse, actually.
I think he's someone that finds his form extremely quickly, Valverde. He's always great in the early seasons, and perhaps he's thinking Tour de Suisse or Criterium de Dauphiné is just a bit too many days for me before the Tour, because he might peak too soon.
It also, I think he's obviously very determined, as Simon mentioned. He's been out, checked out the pavé, but it's also a more low-key race. There's less pressure. There's always pressure in the build-up races like Swiss and Dauphiné on the main protagonists for the Tour, and that's quite a burden to carry through. So it's quite an interesting tactic that I think he's applied. And I think looking at the route of the Tour de France, I think it might suit his attributes more than some of the other riders who revel on the really high mountains. So it should be interesting.
Well, just like we did for our Giro d'Italia preview, I think we've pretty much covered our backs when it comes to the general classification at the Tour de France. Very quickly, we'll go on to the sprinters. Quite a number of sprint days this year. I think 8 total, at least flattish days, maybe 7 that will end up in a bunch sprint. 3 big sprinters, of course, are going to be at the race side. Mark Cavendish, Kittel, Andre Greipel. How do you see that playing out again this year?
Well, I'm pretty excited actually about the sprint battle, particularly as it's starting in Yorkshire, in England, and Mark Cavendish has said that this is a really, really important thing for him. Not only is the yellow jersey at stake as well, but also I think he's got something to prove. After last year, when he only won 2 stages, and the year before where he only won 3, I think as the greatest sprinter in the world, and I think that's a term that's been bandied around quite a lot when it comes to Mark Cavendish. I think he's got to go and try and earn that title back, actually, isn't he?
I think I saw a stat from Killian Kelly on Twitter not so long ago saying that actually Kittel and Cav have come towards the finish of stages or races 13 times in total. That means, of course, when one of them's dropped and the other one's it's not counted. But out of those 13 times they've come towards the finish line, Cav's only won 2 of those, and they were at the Stir Electro Tour. So actually, in a head-up sprint, apparently Mark Cavendish has never beaten Kittel.
It's an interesting stat. It's not one that Mark would really want to hear. I know he doesn't particularly like talking about Kittel directly. I know there's a genuine respect, and they're even tweeting each other in Dubai about the PlayStation and stuff. But there's a healthy relationship there. But Mark's just focused on his own game. But I, for one, am looking forward to the drag strip that's going to be Greipel, Mark Cavendish, and Kittel for sure.
And
Cavendish has got his lead-out train a bit more dialed from last year as well, hasn't he? That's worth saying. He's now got Mark Renshaw back. And he was, incredibly effective as his lead-out man. So potentially, that's what he needs to.
Pataki as well, the guy that's still in the peloton that's won the most career wins, I think, of anybody still left racing. So for sure, he's got a fast lead-out coming in towards the finish. Worth talking also about those 3. Do you see any of them being able to fight it out for the green jersey this year? Peter Sagan's dominated that competition now for the last 2 years, and you have to wonder whether any of them are going to have anything against him in that green jersey competition.
For the green jersey, he's almost a shoo-in unless he has an accent, because he's just so consistent on all sorts of terrain. And if it's going to be a green jersey designed around his physical attributes, it's going to be this one, I think.
Yeah, actually worth mentioning what the 21 stages look like this year. We've got 6 high mountain stages, of which 4 are mountaintop finishes. 8 stages which are pretty much completely flat, although 7 of those I think will probably end up in a bunch sprint. 4 transitional hilly stages, 1 time trial, 1 stage in northern France over the cobbles, and 1 stage which we couldn't really categorise. It's like a hilltop finish but not a mountaintop. Stage 2 could shake things up a bit, but stage 5, Si, over the cobbles for the first time since 2010, that's going to be a really interesting one for everybody in the race. race.
It is. It's one of these slightly cruel twists that the Tour de France organisers put in. Obviously, we're going to be interested about who can win the stage, and there's some big classics guys that will be riding the Tour. But more so, it's which of the GC riders can get over the cobbles without either crashing or losing time or having mechanical problems. Because, you know, when you look at someone like Chris Froome, who's so light, how's he going to cope? What's going to happen when he hits, you know, the Carrefour de l'Arbre? It's going to be good to watch, but not necessarily in a good way, if you see what I mean.
There's so much at play on that stage, isn't there? I mean, it's not just the GC riders that are frightened of losing time and crashing. You've also got people that are going for the green jersey, wanting to pick up points if they possibly can. You've also got the likes of Sepp van Mark, Fabian Cancellara, who are thinking, I can take a stage win here. There's like everything to play for on that stage.
There's going to be a battle amongst the lightweights. Contador weighs kind of 62 kilograms. He's going to be bouncing all over the place. He's even lighter than Chris Froome. It's going to be a struggle, but I think the focus is going to be on the main GC protagonist. There could be some big time gaps. It's certainly brave of the Tour de France to put it in. We've got 9 sectors on that stage. It's going to be fantastic stuff.
I think it's even worse than Paris-Roubaix itself in some respects, because every one of the GC contenders knows they have to be in the mix at the front. So can you imagine how fast the pace is going to be before they hit that first sector, knowing they all have to be in the right place? It's going to be like a full-on sprint lead-out, only with lightweights sat on the back. It's going to be carnage.
It won't be long though until the GC riders do finally get into the terrain, which they really do prefer. La Planche de Belleville, another climb which we saw 2 years ago, where actually Chris Froome shot to prominence by winning it after Team Sky dominated. I think there was only about 4 guys left by the top of that climb. It reappears again this year on a much hillier stage. That's going to be an interesting one, that first mountaintop finish, Matt.
It certainly is. It'll be interesting as we come out of the hillier stages and the sprint stages and the carnage that could be stage 5. It'll be interesting to see how riders are. Teams are going to look at the parcours, look at the course and attack early, because we've got stages of 120, 130, 140 Ks, not 230, 250 K stages, which we've had in years gone by. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, well, we should see lots of exciting and explosive battles played out over the 6 high mountain stages. But the GC battle won't be finished after we leave the mountainside, because towards the end, the penultimate stage, we've got the only time trial, 54 Ks long though, and it's quite hilly. So there could be some big gaps on that second to last stage there.
Absolutely. It's something of a curveball actually to only have one time trial, and to put it on the penultimate day, we could end up with a nail-biter of a finish to the Tour de France. And 54K, as you say, it's a long one. You know, there could be some huge time gaps there for someone who's an excellent time trialist like Chris Froome. You know, how much time can he put into someone like Vincenzo Nibali potentially over 54K? So whatever comes out of the mountains, as you say, could be turned on its head on that penultimate day.
Well, now it's time for GCN's first ever gossip column. Now, the Colombians made a big impact at the Giro d'Italia this year, of course, first and second overall with Quintana and Uran, but they're less likely to make an impact at the Tour de France, partly because Carlos Betancourt of AG2R doesn't appear to be making an appearance. He's stuck in Colombia, apparently ill, got lost by the team, didn't have any contact with him. Bit of a shame, Si, not to see him on the start line this year.
Yeah, and really strange as well for in this day and age for a high-profile rider to just go AWOL.
But Bradley Wiggins, will he be in the team? Won't he be in the team? He kind of confirmed himself to the BBC that he wouldn't be taking part in this year's race, much to the disappointment, of course, of all of the fans that would love to see him at the start line in Yorkshire. But Brailsford afterwards saying that I choose a team, it's not finalised yet. Could we see him in there or not?
Froome is the man for the Tour. We know that. Brad knows that. Everybody knows that. But it would have been good to see, Brad Wiggins riding alongside Chris Froome. I know there's issues in relation to the harmony of the team. I don't know is the answer. Let's hope nothing happens to any other riders for him to get a place in relation to injuries, but who knows?
I think possibly the longest answer I've ever heard, which ended with I don't know. But with that answer, I think that means that we'll have to cut things now and say thank you very much for joining us for our preview show. We'll be back, of course, with plenty of content for the Tour de France over the next few weeks, starting soon with myself and Matt riding the first couple of stages. So we'll see you soon. Well, it's time to make some very bold predictions for the Tour de France. Maybe not for the winner, but what do you predict is going to happen over that 3 weeks, Matt?
Mark Cavendish to take yellow in Harrogate.
Simon Gerrans will win stage 2 and take the yellow jersey with it.
Vincenzo Nibali is not going to make the podium.
Well, predictions don't come much bolder than that. Really kind of sticking your neck out, for want of a better expression.
Dan! Dan!
The car's better then.
Dan!